Good morning, everyone. It's so great to be here live with all of you. My name is Jana Machado, and I will be your hostess this morning. Before we begin, let us conduct our opening prayer. So I invite all of you to connect with our Creator, asking for guidance, intuition. We thank you, Lord, for everything you provide us, the knowledge of Spiritism. Today, as we begin our seminar, we ask that you be present and that every single person who's joining us, incarnated or discarnated, that they can learn with us a little bit more about Spiritism. We thank you for another opportunity and we ask permission to begin. So be it. So we are starting our second English seminar, and it's an effort to promote and disseminate Spiritism in English. The Spiritist Federation of Florida is proud to bring yet another event with this year's topic, what can Spiritism do for you? More than a statement, it's a question we hope to have answered by the end of the day. Hosting us this morning is Plenitude Spiritist Society of Orlando. We also have 5 different speakers from different Spiritist centers, united this morning and afternoon, promoting unification and fraternity. Today's program will begin divided into 2 different blocks, one starting now, the other at 2 p.m. Both blocks will have a Q&A session at the end of each block. So make sure to write down your question in the chat area. And this morning, our first speaker is David Walton from the Conscious Living Spiritist Group of Miami. His opening topic is building blocks for a meaningful life. Welcome, David. Thank you so much for being with us today. David's muted.
Okay, that would be better, right? I think you'll hear me better. I'm not muted. Well, thank you very much for inviting me. Really, it's a privilege and a pleasure.
All right. All yours.
Okay. Well, thank you, Janaina, and all the others involved in making this event happen. As I mentioned, it's a privilege and a pleasure to be able to talk. And be quite honest, I always remember that I am the better beneficiary of giving a talk. It really forces me to study a little more, be more confident in what I'm going to say, and I think I'm the greatest beneficiary. But I hope you will be too. This is a really interesting subject, and I'm excited to start the day off with this building blocks for a meaningful life topic. When we reflect on this last 18 months, it's been extremely difficult for us all. I'm sure some of us more than others have maybe been personally affected, being ill, or even maybe lost a loved one. And it's been incredibly challenging time for humanity. But the good news is I think we're beginning to see the light. And also I like to reflect on some of the positive things that's come out of the pandemic. Certainly personally, my wife Fatima is working from home and we're spending more time together, and so far not falling out too much. No, I'm only joking. But there have been a lot of positive aspects. I think for Spiritists, it's been an opportunity to reflect more about what the doctrine does bring to us, how it helps us and how it helps us understand what is going on. So when I was given this topic, in fact, it derived from, there was a workshop or seminar originally scheduled for March last year in Portuguese with great speakers, Divaldo Franco and Alberto Almeida from Brazil, and others, our own Susana Simões. But of course, it didn't happen. It was then actually realized this year in Portuguese. And this event today is basically taking those 5 topics and putting them in English with, again, local speakers, as Jana said, from Florida to help us really develop the movement in Florida. And so that's where we're coming from. Now, when I was given this topic, I did watch Alberto Almeida's talk, and I thought, wow, there's no way I can even emulate part of that, and I don't want to. But so I reflected, and I think the best way for me to address this is talk about my journey and delve in some of the basics of Spiritism, what it's done for me, what it means to me, in the hope that some of the things that I mentioned today will translate and resonate with you, listening. So with that said, I really want to go back to the basic concepts of the Spiritist doctrine today, because they really reinforce the core beliefs and the realization of its contribution in making my life more meaningful. I want to start off by saying also, I did have very little religious upbringing. And in fact, if you asked me 10 years ago, before I came across Spiritism, I would have said I was certainly an atheist and probably an agnostic. But again, I came across Spiritism and I started my journey. And I hope that these reflections are going to, when I step back and analyze why Spiritism became part of my life, I hope that you can, resonate with something that I'm going to talk about today. And it doesn't matter if you're born into a Spiritist family or stumbled across the doctrine like I have on my life's journey. And even if you know little or nothing, I think there's going to be some elements today in the talk that will resonate with you and make your life more meaningful, however small the increment. And for those the audience who have a really broad knowledge of Spiritism, I really believe there's additional benefit in returning to the core principles. So often when we study something in depth, at length, it can hinder our ability to see the whole picture. Yeah? We often, if you like, cannot see the wood for the trees. And we encounter difficulty in explaining how and why we believe to others. And it's very important to be able to verbalize what is Spiritism, right? To explain to others, because we have families and friends who are saying, "Oh, what is Spiritism?" And it's not easy to answer that question without you can either put people off completely when you talk about the spirit world out there, and they, "Oh, I don't want anything to do with that." But it's important to try and be more eloquent and have the words ready to give that elevator speech, if you like, that 2-minute speech about what is Spiritism. We've all got an obligation to serve, and by aiming to embrace the teaching, obviously, of Jesus in our every action is the way, right? There's no better way to convince or to stimulate somebody's interest in Spiritism than by demonstrating the good behaviors, right? And going back to the theme of the conference, what Spiritism can do for you, it reminded me of what John F. Kennedy said in his inaugural address some 70 years ago. We shouldn't be asking what Spiritism can do for you, but what you can do for Spiritism, right? So again, when our good actions prompt an observer to inquire about our belief system, we really need to be able to articulate the basic principles of the Spiritist doctrine in order to stimulate further interest. We must also recognize that Spiritism cannot be taught, really. It needs to be studied, right? The intent has got to come from within. And we can all do, what we can do and must do is to guide that interest in the best path. Again, by explaining Spiritist's core principles, we can optimize the learning process, especially as we help others along this path. So in the opening page of the Spirits book, Allan Kardec gives us the first insight to the many key principles of Spiritism when he premises the work. If you could give me the slide, please. There we go. A Spiritist philosophy. He starts off by premising the whole Spirits book by these words. A Spiritist philosophy, and he adds, containing the principle of the Spiritist doctrine concerning immortality of the soul, the nature of spirits, their relationship with humankind, moral laws, present life, the future life, and the destiny of humanity, according to the teachings given by high-level spirits through several mediums. So what is Spiritism? It's often said that the building blocks of Spiritism are threefold: science, philosophy, and it's certainly a science, right? It's science in the sense that it's a study that involves a detailed analysis of the information collected through mediums, verified, organized, and cross-referenced in a a rational, objective manner. That's the scientific part. It's not astronomy, it's not biology, but it's this approach to Spiritism. That's where the science comes in. And it's certainly a philosophy, because it really does provide the answers to those existential questions of where we came from, why we're here, where we're going, and most importantly, what happens after we die. However, for me, the third building block, religion, needs a little further qualification. Can you bring up the slide there, please? There we go. So the third block, religion, again, it needs more qualification because it's a word that's been really corrupted, misused over the centuries. And the origin of the word religion comes from the Latin word ligare, right? To join, to link, and classically understood to mean the linking of human and the divine. If you go deep and look at the Merriam-Webster's dictionary, religion is defined as a social, cultural system of designated behaviors, practices, morals, worldviews, texts, sanctified places, prophecies, ethics, organizations that relate humanity to the supernatural, transcendental, and spiritual elements. But again, it's getting broader and broader. And Wikipedia goes further and says, there's really no scholarly census of what constitutes a religion. Furthermore, it's estimated there's over 10,000 distinct religions worldwide. Different religions may or may not contain various elements ranging from the divine, faith, supernatural beings or transcendence. Religious practices may be rituals, sermons, festivals, trances, prayer, worship, meditations, music, public services, and many other aspects of human culture. So based on this, I think religion is a bit misleading because it's too broad and it's been too diversified in its understanding. Everybody has a different understanding of the word religion. So I think it distracts from its really the scientific and philosophical point. Again, a personal point of view. Religion means something to everyone, a different thing to everyone. So back to that question, what is Spiritism? And although the work of Kardec and still remains today as the first building block, starting point for any study, it's fair to say that during those 20 years that Kardec, I think, worked on the development of the doctrine, it was a period really of exploration and discovery, just like science, right? And the good news is that following Kardec's discarnation, the high order spirits had prepared Leon Denis to give continuity to the work. And where Kardec was the codifier of Spiritism, Leon Denis was the consolidator and took the doctrine to the next level. He was really instrumental in facilitating the founding of numerous spirit centers throughout France, subsequently Europe, and for making the doctrine more accessible to the masses through his incredibly elegant publications. If anyone who want to read some really good books on Spiritism, go to Leon Denis. After Death certainly is a must. It's a beautiful book. Following that, the first half of the 20th century was a pretty dark time for humankind. Much conflict and, of course, the two world wars. And it really sort of overshadowed the development of Spiritism. And then in the middle of the last century, Spiritism really re-emerged in Brazil. And particularly through the mediumship of Chico Xavier, channeling of the spirits Emmanuel and André Louis and others. These mediums and evolved spirits brought us more knowledge and a much deeper understanding. And even today, the truly amazing medium, Divaldo Franco, now 94 years young, continues to bring us further insights, particularly through the teachings of Joana de Angelis and Manuel Filomeno de Miranda and others. The last one, Manuel Miranda, is bringing out, there's a new book being published in English very shortly, Andrea tells me. And it really addresses the Spiritist perspective on the pandemic, why it happened, where we're going. So I'm really excited about reading that in English. Today we got well over 100 books in English now about Spiritism, of course, other languages as well, but there's a huge library now available in English, which is accessible. A lot of it is for free. If you go onto the Spirits Academy, you can get all the basic texts in PDF. So there's no obstacle to anybody interested in learning. Don't have to spend any money. Some great material out there. So what is Spiritism today? Where are we today? When people ask me to explain Spiritism, I'd like to define it. If you could bring up the next slide, please, Andre. As a body of knowledge, okay, based on scientific study we talked about, reasoning and provides answers to the existential questions, right, of life. And the way I'd like to propose the religious side is it really connects us with the spark of spirituality we all have within us. And that's what I think that was there all my life, but I just could not find the answers through the traditional religions. When I found Spiritism, then I could realize, then I knew it was there, and then, you know, it blossomed, I think. So let's go back to Spiritism, and it's built on, again, building blocks. We're talking about building blocks today. 5 basic building blocks of principles. And if you could just bring up the next slide, Andrea, please. The first one is the existence of God, the supreme intelligent, first cause of all things, just and good. Again, I have a little confession here. I struggle with this, the concept of God. But once you get into the Spirit's book, and the Spirit's book is actually only talks about God in the first, I think, 15, 16 questions. And there's no mention of God anywhere else in the Spirit's book. And in fact, in all Kardec's books, it only comes up in the moral laws in this, you know, in the third book, the Gospel according to Spiritism, when he quotes from the Bible. But very little about God. But what gives me solace, what gives me comfort, is the answer to, I think it's question 13, when Kardec asks, you know, well, will we immortal, we in our material life ever really understand God? And the Spirit says, well, eventually, but you need to overcome those material components of your development. And once we suppress the material and become more spiritual, then we will get to know God. So I take a lot of solace from that. I don't worry too much about whether I understand. I think I just accept the fact that my level of involvement, and it's way down on that scale, will eventually get there. Second one, immortality of the soul. And of course, we're all immortal beings. We're all immortal beings having a physical experience, but one day our body will die, but our soul will live on, right? Third one, plurality of existences. Of course, this is the key to Spiritism, reincarnation. We've got many existences, but the sole purpose is spiritual progress and enlightenment. So it's not just we're immortal, we reincarnate, but it's why. Why? Okay, we're here to learn, we develop. What we don't learn in this lifetime, we'll learn in the next. What we made mistakes in the last time, maybe we're suffering the consequences in this lifetime. And then we go on to the plurality of worlds. And me being a bit of a scientist and a cosmologist buff on the side, I love to study the subject. And increasingly, we know that there's got to be life anywhere, somewhere else. So again, Earth is our home for now, but there are many worlds which we will inhabit one day. And we'll all progress in our spiritual journey. And finally, again, the key point of spirits is that there's a communication between spirits. We know there's a connection between incarnate spirits. You know, we have our friends, our family, but we're also attracting discarnate spirits as well. And they, with similar attitudes and desires, but sometimes we can be guided, sometimes, unfortunately, we can be misguided by them. So it's important to know this aspect of Spiritism. Again, what stands out for me the most on these 5 building blocks is not just the immortality of the soul, process of reincarnation, but again, the purpose behind such an ongoing process. You know, most religions believe in immortality of the soul, when after death we go to heaven, or perhaps the other place down below, for eternity. But that never made sense to me. And when you approach immortality of the soul with this aspect of reincarnation and continual learning and improvement, then Spiritism becomes so much more believable, so much more something to follow and guide us, right? When I was exposed to Spiritism, 10 years ago, again, my scientific and reasoning mind kicked in, and I really was very skeptical that first 6-12 months. I started to attend classes and started to read. But as I really began to explore the concept of reincarnation and spirit communication, you know, there's an incredible amount of evidence out there, if not proof, that validated the idea there is a spirit world, okay? And you've got to look on the other side. If you look at the science today, humankind's scientific interpretation of the world around it was ever-increasing new technologies, the Hubble telescope, and so on and so forth. It's constantly discovering new frontiers, which are inexplicable, right? Inexplicable from our current theories and hypotheses. For example, we look at galaxies. So you can bring up the next slide, Andrea, please. We have galaxies that are spinning around, and the gravitational pull is not sufficient to keep those galaxies together, yet they stay together. So science has said, well, there must be something, some mass, some matter that is holding them together. And they call it very, very creatively dark matter because they can't see it. But what is that? You know, again, what I'm trying to do here is just show some of the things in science that are not answers. In fact, the more science evolves, the more unanswered and our theories begin to break down. And similarly, if you look at the universe and the expansion of the universe on this next slide, the universe is not only expanding, but is continuing to expand at an ever-increasing rate. And again, the science, our current science, doesn't explain that at all. So they call that dark energy. So if you sum all these together, what we really see and know and understand about the universe is less than 5%, as this next slide in the pie chart will show you. 5% of what we can see and we observe in the universe, all the particles, all the galaxies, it's only 5%. The other 95% we don't know. So again, the point I'm making here is twofold. There's one, science has got to sort of be aware of other things out there. There's this 95%. And maybe, you know, I think there's a definite conversion. A lot of scientists are looking more towards the spiritual side of our beings. And hopefully there's going to be a convergence of science and religion and this spirituality that will explain these things. Science eventually will explain. I have no doubt about that. It will, probably won't be in my lifetime or this one, but maybe the next, hopefully. Love to see the answers. You know, and there's some scientists, Lawrence Krauss is one that I admire very much, but he's written many books on specific strength theory, really complex scientific aspects, but he's a staunch atheist. In fact, he calls himself an anti-theist, right? And again, together with Richard Dawkins, another one, he's a biologist and evolutionarist, you know, Darwin. Again, the two of them together have lectures that just scorn any spiritual side of our being. And it's sad in a way, because they're just burying, in my opinion, burying their head in the sand. All right. I'm just looking at the time here. I'm going to skip a little bit here. But I want to go back to, again, my path on Spiritism and what were the building blocks for me. And I want to just relate to you, I think, 7 different topics, if this next slide will show, about where we can find evidence for the scientific world, from the spiritual world, from a scientific point of view. First one is past life memories in young children. This field was really initiated by Dr. Ian Stevenson in the 90s. The work still continues at the University of Virginia. There's a whole department into the sort of paranormal, of which past life memory is part of it. Some great TED Talks out there about this subject, but there's thousands of documented cases of young children up to the age, maybe 6, 7, have memories of a past life. And these have been really studied and verified. There's no other way that the child can have these memories without having that real experience in a past life. And it does continue into as we lose those immediate memories, there are still memories there in the unconscious. And Brian Weiss, who may have read some of his books, he has a regression technique, it's called hypnosis, that can access often past lives that bring traumas in this life, and has cured many people of major traumas just by reminding them of these past life experiences and why they happened, and it's alleviated a lot of the symptoms. Then we have child prodigies. I mean, you go on YouTube and look at young Chinese 4-year-old children playing the piano, playing Mozart on the piano with no tuition, playing beautifully. I mean, 4-year-old. Well, comes from a past life, of course. All these moral and intellectual aptitudes that we develop in previous lives stay with us. Sometimes they're not accessible. Some of them become more accessible than others. But it's this continuous improvement, which we pass on life to life. For those who have had children, and more, 2 children, 3 children, the aspects of the personality of those children are so different, and yet they come from the same DNA pool, the genes, and through parents, they come with the same environment, same nurturing, same guides. They're different, even in identical twins. Then we have near-death experiences. I think this is one area where in medicine is becoming to understand more and more the aspect of the psychological, spiritual side of our being, what influence it has on our physical being. But also there are cases, and documented cases now in the thousands, of people who've gone through a near-death experience, maybe through an operation or an accident, and have come back with lucid memories of what happened. And even though the individual may be totally unconscious, they still can recall things from past life. Things that happened during that moment they were in unconscious body. There are certain individuals that have been documented, they can actually take their consciousness outside of the body, observe things in adjacent rooms. There's techniques to try and improve that and trying to develop that skill. But again, finally, and most convincingly, of course, is all the mediumship. And just take Chico Xavier as an example with over 420 books, I believe. He had a fourth or fifth year of education, minimal education, and yet his psychograph books by Andre Louise contain technical and medical concepts that only today are beginning to be proven. At the time they were written in the 50s, 1950s, nobody knew anything, and certainly Chico, in his own mind, didn't know anything. So again, put all these together. Yes, they're all individual evidence, but I think collectively they give proof of the spirit world. So for me, once I researched and firmly concluded that reincarnation, of the existence of the spiritual world, is a reality, and it makes sense from a philosophical point of view, it answers those questions. So how does it affect my life? Okay. And, you know, how does it influence me when I wake up each day, and what do I, you know, my behavior, my actions? And I want to just summarize in this next slide, I think, a few of the key areas where Spiritism plays a part in my daily actions, right? The first one is death and dying, okay? You know, knowing that my spirit will live on is incredibly consoling, right? Shifted my attitude towards inevitable death of the physical being to one of, well, it's renewal and new opportunity. Yeah, like you all, I don't look forward to leaving, and perhaps I'm not that far away. Today's my birthday, by the way. One more year near, oh dear. Anyway, leaving, albeit temporary, those who I've loved, and like everyone else, have some undesirable, understandable trepidations about the process of dying and possible pain and suffering for myself and those around me, right? But I understand that any pain will be short-lived, the break in relationships will be temporary, and I have the opportunity to even meet spirits from the past, loved ones from the past, my parents, who knows? Second one is responsibility. What Spiritism for me teaches is responsible. I'm responsible for everything that I experience. And I recognize that every obstacle in life is an opportunity for growth. It comes to be a bit daunting at first, but once we make that shift from blaming others or our bad luck or karma and take ownership of the events in our life, it can be very comforting to know that we have the solutions to life challenges and we're in control. And again, what I've suffered in this life, that was a mistake I made in the past life. I need to suffer to understand and make sure I don't do it again. Third thing, material possessions. And we need to recognize that we need material things to live, right? To have physical life comfortable, fulfilling. But we often have difficulty in differentiating what is needed and what is superfluous. We don't own anything. Okay, we're merely stewards. We're also on the physical plane. And we certainly can't take anything with us into our next life. So personally, I'm always in this constant process of decluttering, freeing myself from stuff that no longer serves me. And it really is amazing how satisfying that cleansing can be, right? Just getting rid of stuff, especially if you can pass it on to someone else who perhaps it's more useful than I have. I have more use for it than I have. Number 4, gratitude. Gratitude, you know, expressing thanks, recognizing that all we have in this physical life, it can be really rewarding and soothing, right, on one's psyche. And it gives, you know, it can be a form of reflection, meditation, prayer. For me personally, I get my meditation in my garden, contacting with Mother Nature. Number 5, service. This is a building block that helps us have a more meaningful life. We're here to serve, right? And play a part in the advancement, not just of ourselves, but also those around us, no matter how small the offering can be. Charity, yes, it's good, giving money, but what we can do is just be compassionate, having patience to help those around us. And especially in these days of COVID, it's even more important. We're sensitive to the needs of others. And finally, opportunities to grow. Every day for me is a learning experience. I'm retired, so I do have time on my hands. So it's amazing how much things I have to do every day. But studying and learning and growing is just so much. And what I love about Spiritism is that it's not I don't approach Spiritism in a silo. I like to look for evidence from outside, as I've been explaining here, but to see how one reinforces the other. And sometimes it contradicts, and contradiction is good. The Spiritism moves on. Science is not, there's no truth in science. It's all relative truth, because what we know today, we're going to find something different tomorrow. So I'm coming to the end. I'm trying to keep it within the 30 minutes I was allotted. I really hope that there's been some elements of my talk or my experiences that can resonate with you and maybe reinforce and make, incorporate into your own building blocks to make your own life more meaningful. I'm going to end it there. I did have a little talk, little recitation at the end from someone I admire so much, but I think in the interest of time, I'm going to leave it there. I thank you all for your patience and look forward to hearing the rest of the talks today. And if anyone's got any questions, we're going to have the opportunity to discuss later on. So I'll hand it back to you, Jana. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. It was very enlightening. So our next guest spirit is from the Spiritist Society Seeds of Light of the Fort Myers area, and it's me. So my topic today is action and reaction. You are in control. When I was given this topic, I almost said, oh, can we change? Because this topic is something that really has been touching me as far as, we are born, we are brought into a family, we get in contact with Spiritism, life happens. And sometimes there is no explanation for certain things. But I was like, no, if the work came, I'm capable of. But I would like to begin when we talk about action and reaction. You are in control. That part that says you are in control, it's a statement, it's an affirmation. So, what does it mean? I would like to begin bringing the definition of the word action and reaction, and then we will go into the Spiritist portion. So, action, the definition is the fact or process or a feeling experienced in response to a situation or event. A person's ability to respond physically and mentally to external stimulus. Actually, I read that, the reaction. So action is the definition, is the fact of process of doing something typically to achieve an aim. So an action is we are doing something to achieve an aim. And the reaction is the action performed. And every single action or thought has a reaction to it. The reaction is the result of its action. If it's good, the result will be good. But if it's bad, the result is not going to be so pleasant. It's going to be equally bad, per se. And when we have the statement, you are in control, what does that mean? So, by our free will, we carve the way to our life. We built our life yesterday. We have built our life yesterday. And the way we live today, it builds our life of tomorrow. We, as spirits, Because we are spirits, we are incarnated, we have a physical body, but we are spirits. But as human beings, we aim for a better life. To achieve that end, we must make better choices today and make every effort to overcome our own vices and bad tendencies. There is a movie I saw a while ago called Atlas Cloud. Atlas Cloud. And it's kind of a long movie, and it's a very, very interesting movie. Very futuristic, But there is one phrase that one of the people says, in the middle of the movie that always strikes me. And that phrase says, our lives are not our own. From womb to tomb, we are bound to others, past and present. And by each crime and every kindness, we birth our future. And that was David Mitchell. So, action and reaction, you are in control. This is it. For each crime and every kindness, we birth our future. The life we live today, it's based on our yesterday. But here's the thing, even if we were today a very criminal person, our future can always be rewritten. Meaning, the more we work towards our progress, the more we observe our own imperfections, we are able to make better choices. And then in a next opportunity, a next life, yes, we will probably have to continue what we have started. But every effort you make, it counts towards the good. Knowing action and reaction and the affirmation you are in control. So, what moves us to proceed towards good or bad? How can we understand the mechanism of our own actions? Since we are all spirits undergoing our own experience, is there something we can pay attention to it that helps us know if we are proceeding in life towards good instead of the bad? And by observing our moral imperfections, our bad tendencies and vices, we are able to come to the conclusion, how are we doing today? And this is a question I want to make to all of you who are listening. And that includes myself, because as I was doing my notes and, getting my thoughts together, I was like, what is it that maybe in a past life happened that, today it's bringing, it's coming to surface. There are so many things, so many actions, many lives we have lived. But by observing our moral imperfections, our bad tendencies and vices, it's a beginning. But we cannot forget that we also already have acquired virtues, good tendencies, and moral virtues. So, as human beings, we are living a life and we navigate and we bring both. We bring both informations. We bring the light, we bring the shadow. But sometimes we don't want to observe our own shadows. And this is important that we can observe because we are able to understand the mechanism of action and reaction. Spiritism brings us the knowledge of our future life, the survival of the soul after death, and God is just. In the spiritual realm, before we have a new opportunity to reincarnate, there are many good spirits, spirits that are entitled to that one family, to that particular case. It can be you, it can be me, it's all of us. And they're there waiting for that one moment when we open our eyes and we are awakened to the true reality of the spirit. And in those moments, they come to us and we are offered a new opportunity. We are offered tools to overcome our own imperfections. Sometimes we may ask for lots of things, but they know us. They know how much we can handle. As we awaken in the spiritual realm and are getting ready to reincarnate, we come in contact with actions from other lives or from that previous life. And we have to pick up from that moment. So there comes that good group of spirits who wants you to progress, who wants myself to progress. And they bring together that family, that spiritual family that will be able to help you. But how can we know if we cannot remember what we have done in the past? How can we do it different? I will tell you something. In the Gospel according to Spiritism, there is a passage where it talks about the forgetfulness of the past. And it's a blessing. Because if we were able to remember everything we have done in the past, maybe we would not be able to stand up and keep going. I also would like to add that we're talking about action and reaction, and there are many good deeds that we do. Maybe in a past life, we had an inclination towards something that today we don't. And probably tomorrow, in a next opportunity, things that we do today, we will not do it then. And every good action, every good act of kindness, charity, when we study to understand our own selves, then we could say that we are in control because we are awakened. Our conscious is awakened. In the book Heaven and Hell, chapter 7, Future Punishment According to Spiritism, items 1 to 33, the penal code of the future life. This chapter is a chapter that every spiritist person should read one day. And why not after today? Because every time we hear the word punishment, it brings us the idea of a God that is always angry, that punishes us when we do something wrong. But in this chapter, we will learn actually that when we are able to understand the mechanism of action and reaction, the knowledge of punishments Punishment gives in and gives space for taking responsibility of our own actions. David mentioned this, taking responsibility in his talk. And this is the key. The moment we are awake, and when I say awake, it's not being awake like we are right now, it's the conscious. When we can see that an action actually was not well performed, and we have then to take responsibility for our own actions. I remember one time talking to somebody I know in Brazil. That's been, many years ago. And we were having a conversation, and the person told me uh, that the action, so the family, the way that it was explained to me was like this, that the family had a curse, and that at least one person in each generation would commit the same crime. And I was listening to that, and I was like, okay, let me listen to the end because, I can't judge. And at the end, the person told me that it was an evil force that made them do it. And then I was like, and where does it comes our own responsibility? Because yes, we can be influenced by people and by spirits, but at the end of the day, we are the one performing the action. And at the time, my understanding of spiritism, was I was in the beginning stage of learning. I did not know how to answer to that, or how, to even bring some enlightening at that conversation. But today, I can tell that if we do not take responsibility for our own actions, then punishment may have that feeling of a punishment. But when we understand that, we shift to understanding that we are taking responsibility, that isn't the experience. God is just and gives us endless opportunities to rehabilitate. Action and reaction serves both good and bad actions. And because we are still imperfect spirits, it's easy only to focus in the imperfections. But we have made progress, and we need to acknowledge that. In this chapter, chapter 7, items 1 to 33, there are many items that are very important. But since it's 33 and we have no time, I'm only going to bring 2 items for our to bring to our knowledge about the topic. And the first one is on item. Let me just see my notes here. It's on item number 16 into the penal code of the future life. Repentance is the first step toward regeneration. It's not enough by itself. Expiation and reparation are still required. So once we are in this moment, we are living the life we are right now. The actions of yesterday are birthing the life of today, whether it's something negative or positive. So, for instance, if it is negative, repentance is the first step towards regeneration, but it's not enough itself. Then we need expiation and reparation. So, repentance, expiation, and reparation, therefore, comprise the three necessary conditions to erasing the remnants of a wrong and its consequences. Repentance softens the rigors of expiation because it awakens hope and prepares the way to rehabilitation. Only reparation, however, can annul the effect and thereby destroy the cause. When we're talking about action and reaction, you are in control. These three steps go hand to hand. Sometimes we observe, because we are human beings, we observe. There are people who live a life that seems like there is no problem. And there are people who seems like that they have, since the day they are born, they have problems after problems. But there is something interesting. Sometimes the people will observe and we think that they have no big problems, but you observe the person, not always they are happy, even though they supposedly have no problems. And then you may see someone that from birth have been given trial after trial, and you look at them and they're happy. I remember that I met maybe 10 years ago a lady. She had polio when she was a child. She was 12 years old when she had polio. So she was in a wheelchair for about 70 years. And I remember not one day seeing that lady complaining about anything. She was the one person you could tell by her eyes how happy she was. And then I can only think between repentance, expiation, and reparation. How victorious that person went out of this life because she accepted the trial and expiation and she was doing it with an open heart. And sometimes we see people that are in the same situation and they complain and they say, how could God do this to me? And maybe if I was in their situation, I would do the same. But I love how it says, only reparation, however, can annul the effect and thereby destroy the cause. On item 21, it talks about responsibility. Responsibility of the wrongs is completely personal. No one suffers for the wrongs of someone else, whether by provoking them through example or by not preventing them. Okay, let me restart here the second phrase because I moved my notes. Responsibility of the wrong is completely personal. No one suffers for the wrongs of someone else, whether by provoking them through example or by not preventing them when they could have done so. So, my dear friends, here we are today. And maybe during this incarnation, you have encountered moments in your life where you ask, why is this happening? And I can only tell you one thing, that once we are awakened, our conscious is awakened, we have hope. And we ask for opportunities to rehabilitate ourselves. Because then in the next opportunity, we come ready to begin a new chapter. I would like to bring two examples of two books to kind of, close our talk about action and reaction. And the first one is about it's a book that I have illustrated, and it's called Action and Reaction, but it's not the one from Andrew Lewis. And it tells the story about a farm owner during the slavery time. And the son of the owner, of this farm had an affair, or, it was going out with the slave, and she became pregnant. And they did not accept that. So one day, what they did in the book, the story, uh, they showed that they took the lady and the two children and threw them into the river. They did not know how to swim. And the farm owner, for many times, for a long time, was suffering after she discarnated. But then the spirit who was killed came to her to give her another opportunity, to say that she did not need to feel like she was, because they would have a new opportunity. So this lady asked for the good spirits for another opportunity to rehabilitate herself. So the first step was repentance, and she accepted the expiation. So she incarnated as a very poor woman with many kids. And one day there was a flash flood, and the woman was taken. So sometimes we see things happening and we have no idea why. Why did the one person survive and the other did not? Life itself has its own ways to bring what's needed at the right time. And there is another one that I love, and it's called Merit, the name of the topic. And it tells the story about a man who was, he worked in a factory. He was indeed a really good man, helped everyone. And one day he had an accident. And you probably know this story because it's used a lot. And this man loses a finger. And then all his friends were like, why did this happen to him? He's such a good person. He helps everyone. And why was he the one that got into this accident? So he went to the hospital. The doctor said he would only lose a finger, even though his whole arm was, damaged. But he said the arm will, get better. That evening, the man went to the Spiritist Center, where he did his volunteer work. And at the end, a spiritual friend gave him a message, and he said, be content today, because through your good work, you were given a chance. And then they explained to him how in another life, he also made someone suffer by being a farm owner. And that one person lost an arm. And in this life, he was supposed to undergo the same situation. But because of his good deeds, because of the work he did, he had the merit not to lose a whole arm, but only a finger. So he can continue to work. So when you think about action and reaction, you are in control. It does not matter what we have done in the past. It matters what we're doing today, because we can ease our expiation by doing good, by learning, by every single day living what we study in Spiritism. And I would like to end my talk bringing a phrase from the book Heaven and Hell. because many people, so if there is someone who's listening to us today and they are not spiritist, they do not know about reincarnation, a survival of the soul after death, and this whole new thing is new for them, you know, we would encourage you to look for one of the spiritist centers in Florida so you get to learn more about it. And right on chapter 1 of Heaven and Hell, there is the first paragraph. It always touches me because it says like this: we live, we think, we act. That is certain. And we die. That is no less certain. But where do we go when we leave this earth behind? What it will be like for us after death? Will we be better off or worse? Will we even exist or not? Being or not being? Such is the alternative. Forever or nevermore. All or nothing. Will we live forever or will everything end once and for all? It is even worthwhile to think about all this. And I am here to say that yes, it is worthwhile to think about it. We must think about it because if we're aiming for that happy place that it's promised to us, it will only be achieved by getting better, progressing to achieve the perfection that is promised to us, a relative perfection to God. So I would like to thank you for having me, and I hope that I was able to bring some important, pinpoints to the topic we are having today. Okay, so since I am two in one today, I would like to introduce our next speaker. And our next speaker is, okay, hold on, I'm getting to my notes. Is Lina Kobayashi, I hope I
Yeah.
pronounced correct, from the Cardassian Spiritist Society of Florida of Deerfield Beach. Welcome, Lina. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you, Jana, for having me. I would like to thank the Spiritist Society of Florida and Plenitude for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be with you here. I wish you're having a good afternoon. I know David and Gianna already talked about a lot of things that Spiritism teaches us in this question about what Spiritism can do for you in this topic of know thyself, which we would like to share some of our studies. So welcome. I hope you guys are having a lot of information, good information to deal with daily life. One thing that Spiritism brings to us is this knowledge that we are immortal spirits, and life is sometimes we have a body, sometimes we don't, but it goes through until we all turn into pure spirits. And one thing is, and Jen already covered on her topic about action and reaction. This the incarnation, the reincarnation portion of it, where we learn here with our studies that the spirit comes for reincarnates in the physical world. It is not by choice, it is imposed by God. It says in the question 132 in the Spirit's book, but with the goal, the objective of perfecting itself, right? Of growth, evolve, and becoming a pure spirit. Going through these phases is mandatory. And we also choose the trials that go for each incarnation. And to start from what Jenna said, one of the ways for us to know ourselves is look at what is going on in our lives, right? And observe our whatever if pain or suffering that we are feeling. That also will help us understand who we are, where in knowing ourselves. And why know oneself? Why know that? Why is this so important? So I'll take back to the question that Allan Kardec makes to the spirits in the spirit book, the question 919. The question is, what is the most effective means for improving ourselves in this life and for resisting the draw of evil? Just the question itself is brilliant, right? What is the most effective way for us to evolve, for us to grow, for us to become better spirits? And the answer is know thyself, the spirit's answer. And Kardec insists on that. It keeps going, right? Okay, I understand. Yes, this is a maxim that has been with us for centuries, for millennia. But how do we do that? What is the practical way to work with it? What are the actions that I need to take in order to know myself better? And St. Augustine will answer this question. Will describe these ways of knowing thyself, right? The first one that he talks about is an auto-analysis. Yes, we have to look into ourselves, and he advises us to do it at the end of the day, because of course at the end of the year we will not remember everything that happened. It's easy, and it's going to be so much. At the end of the month, it's going to be too much. Sometimes I don't even remember what I ate yesterday. So at the end of the day, he says, do a revision. Do a revision of everything that you did on that day, all the actions that you took. Ask yourself if there was something that was wrong. Did I do any wrongdoing towards anybody? Does anybody have a reason to complain about me? These are the first questions that he says. But then he gives us an advice saying, pray and ask for help from God and from your guardian, your mentors, your angels, the superior spirits, to help you, first giving you strength, right? Because it's not easy sometimes to look into ourselves. Even looking at us in our eyes in the mirror, sometimes it's hard. We have, some people have difficulties in looking into their own eyes in the mirror, because the eyes are the windows of the souls, right? So we look into other person's eyes, we look into their souls, and sometimes we have hard time looking into our own eyes. So they will give us strength and enlighten us for our self-improvement. When the willingness is sincere, when we are being honest about this desire of becoming better, help is everywhere. Immediately we are connecting to the spirits who will help us, who are willing to help us, who are willing to see us getting better, right? And another question that he says, ask God, if I was to move on today, if I was to pass away today, would I see anybody on the other side that would be mad at me, that I would be, he's going to say, I would be coward before them. I would be ashamed of myself to look them in the eyes because of my doings, my actions, my thoughts. Since the spirits can see everything, right? And our thoughts are material, are physical. They can see our thoughts. So would any spirit would I be ashamed of myself to look into the eyes of anybody on the other side? Have I done anything first against God and then against somebody else, my neighbor, or myself? Right? The question comes, okay, it's not just what I'm doing in the physical world, but also as a spirit. In the spiritual realm, my thoughts, my feelings, my who I am in reality, beyond the mask of the physical body, will show. Everybody can see that. So am I going to be ashamed to show myself on the other side? If we are honest with these answers, with this, starting with these questions and evaluating the answers, we are giving this first step towards knowing who we are, right? The first thing is the auto-analysis. Self-knowledge is key for our improvement. There's no way for us to grow, improve, becoming better if we don't have an effort, make an effort to work in our own weaknesses, our own lacks, our own dark areas, I would call it, and also in our the points where we don't know, right? We are created simple and ignorant, so there is a lot of things that I ignore, I don't know. Investing in learning, investing in understanding, and seeing all these parts of me that need development. How am I going to know if I don't know, right? Which areas are those? So another way that we can learn about ourselves is through the other, right? And St. Augustine is going to say, listen, think about an action and think about not just the action may be good, but how are your intentions? Are your intentions good as well? And that is an eye opener, right? For even for ourselves. Whatever I'm doing now, do I have a good intention behind it? Am I doing it because of after that I'm gonna be feeling good, I'm gonna have some profits on it, I'm gonna have, and I don't mean profit as money, but it could be, am I looking just for the recognition, just for people looking at my good deeds and talking about them? And he's going to give us this tip. He says, if you are indecisive, if you don't know the quality of your actions based on your intentions, right? Think about how you would judge it if somebody else did this. If you're looking at somebody else taking that same action that you are taking, how would you see that? It's funny because sometimes you see somebody, and when I was studying this and thinking myself, sometimes we see other people doing very good deeds, and we look at that saying, oh, they just want to be recognized. They just want to call attention to themselves. Look at that. They're doing this is such a waste. I heard that, and I already heard that in my life, and I'm thinking, the person is doing something good. Why are you calling it a waste? Right? Oh, nobody will. He's giving things that nobody will use or will take advantage for. Doesn't matter, right? The action is good and the intention is good, and we keep doing that. And I went back to Jesus, where so many of his teachings that we didn't understand, or at the moment when he taught us, it took us like more than 2,000 years to understand some of them, and we're still going, and we're still learning. And so yes, there are a lot in us that we don't know. We don't understand because we don't know. But when we look at another person, the feeling that brings to us, that will show us our true intentions. Right? Another thing, another tip that he says, pay attention to the enemies or the people that we consider enemies. They may not be our enemies, but we look at them as enemies. We don't like them because of, I don't know how many reasons. In reality, St. Augustine is going to say that God puts them in front of us or next to us as a gift, right? As to show us, as a mirror for us. You look into them and they will give you a feedback that many friends wouldn't. They don't have any care about hurting my feelings. They just, if they are my enemies, they will just say whatever it is, whatever they see as my friends would be worried about hurting my feelings, not telling the whole thing, and sometimes not telling at all. So this was also something very interesting when I was analyzing this, studying this, because yes, sometimes we think enemies are put there for just to kill us, or to do evil with us, or to put in our ways as an obstacle. And in reality, they are there also to help us. So everybody that is around us for a reason. We are always in the right place with the right people at the right moment, as Francisco Cândido Xavier used to say. So pay attention to ourselves, pay attention to ask ourselves, analyzing what we did during the day, and then all the actions that we are taking. If we don't know if it's a good or bad, we look at what we would feel looking at somebody else doing it, paying attention to the others around us, the ones that, especially the ones who give us these challenges, these feelings of dislike, because they are there as a mirror for something that we don't like in ourselves sometimes. So they will be showing us areas of ourselves that we don't like, we dislike, we need to grow, we need to change, we need to transform, right? And the pain, as I said, is shows many times. It shows the areas in our lives where we are weak, or we need some repairs. As Janice told us before, we have to repent, we have to make amends, we have to repair whatever we did, took out of place, whatever we took the balance out, whatever we caused damage to, whoever we caused damage to. And the pain is usually going to show us these areas, right? Because if the spirit goes through its lifetimes, its incarnations in order to evolve, and all the incarnations are linked together, we are all, it's one lifetime that the spirit has towards its perfection. And sometimes we bring, whenever we are ready, we bring things from the past that are connected, right? All our lifetimes are connected. We bring this point where we are ready now to work on. And it could be usually, it comes as a painful experience, painful moment for us. It could be a disease. It could be a challenge, a loss of a loved one, and that moment comes to us where we don't understand why the stories that Jana told us about the person is so good, why is he going through that experience, why is he going through that pain? And in reality, it could be a lot worse, right? It's being just a finger, because he was supposed to lose the whole arm, but because he was such a good person in this incarnation, he lost only one finger. And having the understanding of these connections of with what we do and what we sow, right? What we sow and what we reap, the cause and the effect, the action and reaction, as we studied, and understanding that everything is linked together, that will help us to know ourselves. If I'm going through this challenging moment, if I'm going through this challenging experience, and I understand that that is part of me, there is no mistakes, there are no one mistake will not be fixed or repaired by another person, right? As much as my parents would love to, or somebody would love to do it for me, they cannot. It is my own effort, it is my own responsibility to make amends and repair whatever I took out. So the spirit, on the spirit's book, we're going to see on the question 258 that the spirit chooses its trials. If we choose our trials, we have to, whatever experience we are going through, we may not remember that we chose that, but it is related to something that I, spirit, as Lina, as a temporarily, wanted to repair or wanted to go through, to learn, to understand, and to grow over that. If I have this knowledge, once we have this knowledge, our pain, it changes completely, right? It's not a pain anymore. It is just a learning step. It's a learning step for what I need to do, what I need to change, what I need to transform. So looking again, know thyself is a tool, is a resource. It's the most effective way to become better, right? To become a better spirit, as Kardec asked. Self-knowledge is the most effective means of improvement. And knowing that nobody can do for us, I cannot do it for anybody else. I am the only one who can work for my own growth. It gives me what? Tools, right? Know thyself. I have now. I ask myself every night. I look at others as a book, right? A letter from the universe telling me, listen, look at what you're doing. Look at this. Look at these things that you are feeling, and there are some things that you're going to have to adjust. You change a little bit, right? Go and don't sin anymore. You change the volume. You don't need to be so aggressive about it. You don't have to kill anybody because they don't have the same beliefs. The God is the same for everybody. You don't have to fight because you think your religion or your beliefs are better than the other. We are all in this together. We are all one family, and we are all under one, the same. The Father is the same. You can call it different names, but it's the same Father. Once we understand that we are all in this together, we stop seeing each other as the source of my hurts, the cause of my problems. No, I am the one. I am responsible for. I am the one who owns the problems and the solutions, right? Because as long as I keep the power in other hands, it's the other person who hurt me, it's the other person who caused this damage to me, and it's the other person's fault. I will never be able to or have enough power in my hands to change it. Right? But the moment I understand the transformation is inside me, I have to change the way I see that life outside me will continue being the same, but I will have a completely different eye set to look at what's going on. So my filters will change. My understanding will be broader. I will see things with a much higher consciousness, with the possibility of doing the changes, the necessary changes in order for life, in order for my life to become better, to evolve. Since the spirit evolves, we the outside is just a reflection of who we are, and the outside is a reflection also of the filters that I use to look at it, right? And I wanted to bring, it's just we are getting towards the end here. I wanted to bring a message that is from Emmanuel. It was psychographed by Francisco Cândido Xavier, and the message is based on a verse from the letter of Paul to the Romans, and Emmanuel says, whatever hardship that you are living, whatever bad moment that you're on, try not to, do not carry any affliction, or do not make questions that has no answers at this moment, right? But instead, go inside, make silence in your own soul, and listen to your thoughts that are born inside your own being. And you will see the solution. You will recognize that the solution for your life is in yourself. So knowing this, right? Having this moment of silence with ourselves, going in, moving in, and what is in, we will see that going in for us means going back to God, going back to the Creator, going back to the origin, right? Understanding that the divine is in ourselves, understanding the divine is in our consciousness, right? Where is the God's law written? In our conscience. So having this moment of going back and investing in ourselves, investing in knowing us, and trying to bring forth the light that is there already, right? It was said to us, shine your light. It was not turn on or get somebody else's light. No, it's shine the light that is already there, and we have to just take out the stuff that is on the way, right? And that was it. I guess we got to our time, and I think we're gonna go to the Q&A now, right, Jana?
Yes. Hi, Lina. Thank you so much for your talk. And yes, we are going for our Q&A. I'm opening here my notes.
Hi, David.
Hi, Lina. Good to see you again.
Hi, David. Okay, so we have a few questions, for the three of us. And the first question is for David. Can you speak a little further about the aspects of a meaningful life? How can we have balance between the spiritual and the physical needs?
Well, that's a very good question. And of course, trying to achieve balance is one of the biggest challenges of life. I think Spiritism teaches us that material things are good. They're necessary. We want to look after our health and our well-being. We want to eat well, want to be comfortable so that we can grow intellectually as well. But and being successful, following a career to achieve the level of income, but not just for the income itself, but for that feeling of contribution. But again, these things can go too far, right? Actually, I think the best way to answer it is from a quote from Jay Shetty. I am a great fan. I always look outside of Spiritism. This is a book he's a sort of inspirational speaker. If you just Google Jay Shetty, you'll find many talks of his. And he's very charismatic. He was born to an Indian family in London and then went to India and studied to be a monk. But in the end, decided that his best contribution was to come back and incorporate those teachings. And he has a series of blogs and some amazing stuff. But I'd like to quote from him because I think it's something I intended actually to do at the end of my talk and I ran out of time. I did post it on the chat, but unfortunately I had to truncate it a bit, so maybe one or two words missing. But what he says is the following, and I'm going to read it here. So, if you can make a little less and spend more time what you love, will that make you happier? Don't trade your happiness for what you think you need. Things can never make us happy because they're temporary and limited. Experiences can last forever. Too many people are working hard on things they don't love, to spend money they don't have, on things they don't need, to impress people they don't even like. When we create our identity around what we do, a job, a career, an occupation, we can never be happy because we're basing it on something external. But when we create an identity on who we are and what we want to be and become, then anything is possible. And remember, we become successful by what we get, but we become happy by what we give. Don't get the two confused. So it's a beautiful message. And I think, again, this illustrates this need for balance. And that is the challenge we all face, balance in life. So that's my answer with the help of Jay Shetty.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, for sure, we have so many aspects, we could bring into the conversation and with such a short time, but thank you so much. Okay, so I have a question that someone sent for me, and the question is, the person says, I do not feel like I am in control. Unfortunate event seems to be the main topic of my life. How can I feel empowered and truly in control when I cannot catch a break? Is this incarnation supposed to be a punishment? Should I accept it, or I can change the course of my life? Or can I change the course of myself, my life? So no one is born only to suffer. That is for sure. We all go under trials. We all go under expiations. And we do have a question about that also. But there are main things that when we incarnate, that we have to go through. It does not mean that it's a definite fate. Maybe this person is going through a really difficult moment or has been going through, because the person says, I cannot catch a break. So one thing I can tell you, never give up. You are in control in the sense of, even when bad things are happening, what is the lesson we can learn from what's happening? And let's say, for instance, you have no energy and you feel like you don't have power to overcome the situation that you're going through. Prayer is a great resource. We, through prayer, ask for our friends, spiritual friends, to give us the courage to go through the difficult moments. But in the Gospel according to Spiritism, on chapter 5, There are some great explanations about the justice of afflictions, current causes of afflictions, and prior causes. So I do not know what you are going through, but I can tell you that your incarnation is not made for you to be punished. I spoke about responsibility. When we understand that we have a responsibility, it changes the way we view things. I will say one thing, I will add one thing about something that Spiritism, and sometimes make a joke in Portuguese that I say, Spiritism, it's only for the strong people. And when I say this, it's because it confronts us, it takes us from our comfort zone. We have the ability to stop feeling that we can't do something for our life, because yes, we can. And I'm sure you can. So don't feel like you are just being punished. You should not accept the fact, like, oh, I cannot change. Yes, you can. Maybe in this life, there are certain things may not change, but I assure if you go through being strong, doing all you can, you will come out of this incarnation victorious. And by that, I mean that you will have accomplished, what you had to do. I hope I was able to help and not complicate even more. But, again, we have such a short time to talk about it. So moving on, our next question is to Lina. And the question is, do you believe it takes courage to interrogate our conscious, to face oneself, and be willing to see what needs to be changed?
Not just courage. Yes, I would agree. It does take a lot of courage. But I think as everything that sometimes it's new and we haven't done it for a while, it takes a start. Sometimes starting is the most difficult part, right? Once we start, take that first step towards what we are afraid of, or what we are, what's the unknown, what is outside of our comfort zone. We give that first step and we see, oh, I survived, right? I'm still here. And as an immortal spirit, I think every experience is valid. Every step that we give towards outside ourselves, and it's the spirit. I think it's a very a bit complex, because sometimes we think in our physical life that oh, this is the important thing, my physical life, my body, my work, my family, people around me. And for the spirit, the most important thing is to evolve and learn. And you have what we call evolve is becoming wiser and learning to love more, right? And once you love more, once you love, it's the fear disappears. When you do it for love, it's not just courage. You will do whatever it takes uh, to make it happen. I noticed that when I became a mother, that I was extremely afraid of snakes, and I would just run away. I would just leave the house. And one day I got home and I had my daughter with me, and she was 1, and I saw a snake, and I was like, wow, if I leave and the snake's still here, it may hurt my daughter when we come back, because she's going to be in the garden. So I went there and killed it. I mean, so was it courage? I don't think so. It was the fear for it to hurt my daughter that made me do it. But I did it. So, and I think it was because of love that I did it, not because, and the love helps you overcome the fear.
Thank you, Lina. Let me open here. You see, it's too many things all at once.
Too many windows, right?
Too many windows. That's right. I needed,
Too many
one
choices.
more. Okay.
Right.
So, David, the next question is for you. The person says, "Thank you for your presentation. Can you explain a little more about what you said when you stated it's not what Spiritism can do for you, but what you can do for Spiritism?"
Yeah, that was prompted by remembering John F. Kennedy's remarks on his own inauguration. But I think as Spiritists, we have a real obligation to really pass on, some of the benefits that we've experienced through the doctrine. And the way we go about that is, I'm not suggesting for 1 minute we start knocking on doors and preaching like the Mormons or the Jehovah's Witnesses, but we've always got to be aware of any opportunity where somebody comes to you and the way you, first of all, you attract people to Spiritism is through your own actions, right? Your own actions of kindness and tolerance and patience, and just showing how the good virtues are, trying to show those good virtues and how important they are in your life. And people will say, well, how you look so content, why? And then start to divulge some of the basic concepts. And I've done this a lot in my life, and I've some people now that I know are really joined in our movement, joining our classes. And so again, we've all got that part to play. I think we have a responsibility. Again, Jesus tells us we're here to serve, and we're serving humanity, and humanity is asked to advance, and we can all play that part, however little, however small, on that path. So that's my answer to that question.
Okay. Thank you. So I have a question here for myself. It's a short question, but we did get a third question. So I think I'm going to kind of combine because I can give a short answer for the first one. So someone is asking, what is the difference between expiation and trials? So trials are basically, it's just like when we go to a class, we study, and then we have a test to make. You go and you may pass or not. But an expiation is when you are imposed something. So many times you will see, I'm going to use the example of people that may have a disability, and you can tell by how they approach life if that is a trial or expiation. Because most often when it's an expiation, we're not happy, we go against, we do not accept the situation we are in. And a trial, you have the opportunity, you have learned the lesson, and you come to put to the test. You may pass or you may fail, but it's a little less than the expiation when you are imposed. And I was also asked a question about, let me read from my phone now because my computer, and it's about the concept of, collective calamities. And then, for instance, we just had, the situation in Miami where the building collapsed. So before I go into that, I want to just, the Spirits book. Let me open my other window. So in the Spirits book, we have question 738 A and B, 700, and I'm not sure if it's 38 or 88. It's 38. 38 and then A and B. It's kind of a long question. But the main thing here is, if God is supremely good and just, then God can neither act capriciously or with partiality. I'm not going to read the question itself, but that's one point. One thing we learn about Spiritism is that there is no fatality. So when there is a calamity such as that building that collapsed, I had a chance to talk to Marcelo this week and Andrea, and we were, exchanging ideas. And, I learned about someone that was supposed to be at the building, but the person was staying, at somebody's house, and they said, no, don't go home. You just stay here. Tomorrow morning you go and you pick up what you need. And the person didn't go home, and he's alive. We could also use examples from the 9/11, where we see people that were supposed to be in the building and they were not, and people that were not supposed to be there and they were. We have no idea how the universal system works, but for sure, we know that if those people were there together, there was a reason. And some came out alive, meaning, like us, they still have the body, and the others lost the life of the flesh, but are still alive because the spirit does not die. And, this would be a great topic to kind of have, a forum, like a discussion. So we could go more, deep into but Spiritism tells us that nothing happens by chance. And even in calamities, that law, the natural law, does not change. Our human laws change. So something that works today may not be, tomorrow, but the universal laws don't change. And so that would be my contribution for that answer. And I hope I was able to, bring a little bit of information. But for sure, if we use the Spirit's book, and, there are many other talks about the collective, discarnations, that would be something we can look into. And then I guess we have our last question, and that is now for our friend Lina. And the question is, by what signs can I recognize within me that I am improving?
Great question. Great question. The same way, I think, the same three ways, right? We said auto-analysis, we said others, and we said pain. I think these are the three avenues that you can look at how life is responding to you. When we look at ourselves, when are we looking in our eyes in the mirror, is it becoming easier and easier every day? Am I becoming more tolerant towards others and myself? Am I becoming a person that is more understanding of the timing and the other person? That everybody has their own stages of life, and each one evolves in different paces, right? And when I look at the other, am I looking somebody that with care, with patience, with somebody that is part of my family, but it could be doing something that is completely different from what I would. When I watch the news and I see people killing each other, am I giving both the victim and the assassin the same eye of, this is a brother, this is the same, they are both part of my family, they are both my kids, or they are, can I look at them as human beings going through a different process in life? And how am I dealing with my pain? Am I seeing it in a way that is helping me grow? Is it helping me deal better with my life? Do I still suffer, and do I still carry it with a lot of contempt, and I'm against it, I'm fighting it? Or am I working with it? Am I living with it? Am I learning from it? Am I looking in the eye and saying, okay, we'll take it a step at a time, we'll take a day at a time? So you see, I think these are how we see how we're growing.
Thank you. Well, I believe that between the three of us this morning, we all brought different information, different angles. That in a way, it's like a puzzle. It comes together at the end, and I really thank you, Lina and David, for being with us this morning. And we are now going to end our first part. Thank you, everybody that joined us by Facebook and YouTube. And we will be returning at 2 p.m. for our second block of presentations and Q&A. See you then.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.